The main institution is the International Court of Justice, the one with the remit to address this. Now, it has been ignored. And I hope that nobody will come back to South Africa and say, respect the ICC, respect the ICJ, respect this, because the ICJ has not been respected. On Gaza and what we hope to accomplish, really the first thing is to stop the killing of innocent Palestinians. I mean, what we've seen and what each of us watches every day on TV must surely make us horrified about ourselves and our inability to stop that. So we hoped that through the ICJ, through respect for it as one of the international law institutions, that we would, through the provisional measures, have measures that would be set out and that would help to reduce the harm. We knew that we may not stop the conflict in its entirety, but if we could reduce harm to the civilian population and get humanitarian aid in, we would have been happy. Of course, the provisional measures have been entirely ignored by Israel. They've not been implemented and acted upon. We're seeing mass starvation now and famine before our very eyes. So I think we, as humanity, need to look at ourselves in horror and dismay and to be really worried that we have set an example for those very authoritarian regimes that you spoke to earlier, to believe, well, there's license. I can do what I want and I will not be stopped. Because the minute you allow something like this, then what you're doing is setting in place a form of practice that will be very difficult to challenge in future. Now, we went to the ICJ because we've always been told by those who know democracy better than us that we must respect human rights, that we should respect UN institutions, that we should practice democracy, that we should end conflict in Africa. And so we were merely practicing what is preached to us every day and utilizing institutions we have been educated are there to uphold international law and democracy. And so our approach was entirely that which is the institution that has the most significant role in giving directives to nations. And the main institution is the International Court of Justice, the one with the remit to address this. Now, it has been ignored. And I hope that nobody will come back to South Africa and say, respect the ICC, respect the ICJ, respect this, because the ICJ has not been respected. And the day an African disrespects, I hope we don't go to that leader and say, listen, you're out of bounds because you're an African. We expect you to obey. Nobody else needs to, just you. Because that is what we are communicating to the world.
Obviously, the U.S. brought a case to the ICJ as well about Russia's invasion of Ukraine,
indeed.
And that was also disregarded. So the disregard is not, I would say, is not unique in this case. And one of the questions...
Absolutely isn't. And what it behoves is for us to examine how do we find a better way.
I 100% agree. I think if we give up on institutions, even when they are unable to apply force to enforce their decisions, if we give up on the normative product of those institutions, of those rulings, we find ourselves adrift in the sea. And, I think South Africa has invested a great deal in building international norms at the UN Human Rights Council and other places that obviously are violated by governments around the world on a daily basis. But the project of developing those norms, of giving civil society something to advocate on, of giving governments that are in a genuine way interested in advancing progress something to inject into their diplomacy is not a useless project, even if it is a a frustrating 2 steps forward, 1 step back one.
Yeah, I think it's made more and more difficult, and made difficult by the most powerful countries in the world, because the impression that's created is it's the weak who must respect, the weak who should implement. The powerful can do what they want, and they will not be found wanting in any way. So there are lessons that all of us need to examine. And I think institutes and foundations such as this one, in doing their research work, really have to ask questions as to how do the powerful contribute to the greater good? What role is being played to really ensure that all of us hold up the highest standards? You know, there are people who have asked me, you told Putin that you will give him immunity if it comes to BRICS. We went there to say to him, listen, our courts have ruled that we have a duty in terms of domestic law to effect an arrest. Should you come to the summit, we'll have to act in terms of that. And hence he did not attend. There was no immunity promised. But this is the story out there, because nobody can accept that an African country will act as we do. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I have a real concern that those that have great power do not use it to effect real change in the world. And it really is on the powerful to be the biggest proponents of what is best for humanity. And I'm afraid we're missing it. And for me, it's scary because it's just going to produce more and more problems. On Russia and Ukraine, which you asked about, one of the things that we've always said from the beginning is we wish to be able to speak to both countries. And we believe that this war will only end through negotiation, because there are concerns of security on both sides, right? And so we said we wish to be in a position where we can engage both. We're the only country that has gone both to Ukraine and to Russia. We're the country that remains talking every week to both to say we've got to get you in the same room. We've participated in all the working groups on the peace plan of President Zelensky. And we've now said we think there has to be a meeting with Russians, even if it's at the level of advisors, not necessarily yourselves as leaders, but we have to have a beginning. And my team is in Ukraine this week, and they will be communicating that message. Because you can't have a war such as this one, and you're only talking of the peace proposals of one side. You've got to get the two parties into a room. And so we're working hard at that. And every week we are speaking. And we wanted always to be able to be in that position. So despite the criticism and the belief that South Africa is partisan and so on, we talk to both. And in the next few months, I believe President Zelensky will be coming to South Africa because he'd like to strengthen and expand the engagement. And we always wanted to have a situation where we would be able to be a facilitator for both.